8 years ago, a dragon named Kamish carved the worst disaster in human history into American soil, and only 5 hunters survived it. Now the strongest hunters on Earth are gathering in America for the International Guild Conference, but I'm not flying there for them. Beneath the Hunter Command Center, the dragon's body lies untouched, and if one whispered word works, I will command the most powerful magic beast mankind has ever known. AI Anime and Manga presents Solo Leveling. If the Shadow Monarch's rise has you hooked, a like really helps. And tell me in the comments, can even a dragon be raised as a shadow? Subscribe so you don't miss what rises from Kamish's remains, and channel members get every episode early. President Go turned off the TV. It was already 9 o'clock, well past what constituted a late night at the office, but Jinchul still had something to discuss.
China is requesting information on Hunter Sung.
Information? Do you mean his personal information?
No, sir.
Then?
They want anything that's publicly available, such as his raid records or newspaper articles about him.
This made sense. China knew better than to expect to be privy to the personal information of another country's S-rank hunter, much less a hunter like Jinwoo. But why the sudden interest? The Hunters Association of Korea had already announced publicly that Jinwoo wasn't looking to entertain offers from other countries at this time.
The request didn't come from the Chinese government.
What?
It was an individual.
Who?
The Hunters Association of Korea represented the country and worked exclusively with other such organizations, not random people. Jinchul should have rejected the request outright.
Zhigang Liu, China's 7-star hunter, has taken an interest in Hunter Sung.
Zhigang Liu. That was the last name President Go had expected to hear. China didn't follow the international standard when it came to ranking hunters. Instead, they used a star ranking system, and the higher the number of stars, the greater the hunter. 5 stars had been the highest rank one could achieve, until Zhigang Liu came along. Naturally, as both a 7-star hunter and one of the renowned national-level hunters, he received preferential treatment like no other. But, considering Zhigang's great abilities, no one contested this. Hunter Sung caught Zhigang's eye? How had that come to pass? Jinchul explained.
Zhigang fought one of the giants, so he wanted to know more about the man who took care of the rest.
There it was. President Go nodded. Not too long ago, one of the giants had escaped from Japan and headed to China. It was reported that Zhigang had taken care of it somewhere along the coast. President Go smiled mischievously.
Is this the mighty recognizing the mighty?
First, the Hunter Command Center has invited Ajin Guild to the International Guild Conference. Then, the great Zhigang Liu asked about Jinwoo Sung. President Go was proud to have recognized Jinwoo's worth from the start. However, that's a separate matter. No need to flash the value of their gem to those lusting over it, right? It might get them on the bad side of a national-level hunter, but so what? They had Jinwoo on their side. President Go came to a decision and chortled.
Go ahead and turn him down.
The dungeons had changed. It was a realization I had come to while clearing high-ranked dungeons in Japan the last few days. Alert, I scanned the interior of the latest. I could sense the presence of magic beasts, but I couldn't see them. I would have been very confused if my perception had been low or my experience lacking. Maybe from above? I stopped and looked up just in time to see a sticky liquid drip onto the ground ahead of me. Sss. The acid-like substance melted the ground and generated a thick smoke that stung my nostrils and reeked. I wrinkled my nose. Realizing I wouldn't come any closer, the huge blob stuck to the cave's ceiling dropped down. Whomp. Whomp. The blob slowly formed into 12 humanoid figures. It was a unique-looking magic beast with a white mask where its face should have been, and a body composed of slime. I had never seen such a creature before. I summoned an old friend, Night Killer. A dagger appeared in my hand. It used to be one of my preferred weapons, along with Barca's dagger, but it had been collecting dust in my inventory ever since I acquired the Demon Monarch's daggers. I hadn't had an appropriate place to use it in forever. The familiar grip felt good in my hand, and I swiftly threw the dagger at one of the magic beasts. Dagger barrage. Shh. The blade whistled through the air until it pierced a magic beast square in the chest, and kept going until it stuck in the wall behind it. The black liquid that coated the dagger from passing through the magic beast started melting the metal. Sss. The now soft dagger lost its original shape and oozed down the wall. I knew it. I had suspected that physical attacks would have no effect on these beasts. However, before I could mourn the loss of Night Killer, the magic beasts quickly jumped at me. I repelled them with ruler's authority. Bam! An invisible hand sent my attackers flying. Ploop? Bloop! The magic beasts' bodies broke into several jiggly pieces, but the separated blobs slowly merged and reformed perfectly. I barked out a laugh at the creature's ridiculous recovery time. I would have loved to experiment as to whether my shadow soldiers was better, but I need to be patient. Physical attacks, tangible or not, didn't work on them. Then, what else could I try? I pondered a solution while casually avoiding the continuous attacks when I noticed one of the creatures moving awkwardly. Huh? I looked closely to see the magic beast's arm hadn't reformed. I also noted a crack in its mask, probably from when I'd used Ruler's hand. That's their weakness, isn't it? I smiled. Once I figured out how to attack them, it would be easy going from there. Shh! Shh! Dodging the magic beast's merciless punches, I summoned my other friends. Demon Monarch's daggers. A blade appeared in each of my hands, and my eyes flashed. Crack! One of the beasts went limp as a dagger pierced its mask. Whoomp! That was only the beginning. I danced through the group, breaking every single mask in the blink of an eye. Crick! Snap! And lastly, crack! The final mask cracked into 2 pieces, and the beast splashed to the ground, having turned back into liquid. I returned the Demon Monarch's daggers to my inventory. What if I hadn't been the one raiding the dungeon? At least a few people would have been killed before anyone realized that normal attacks wouldn't work. Even more would have been sacrificed before they found out the weakness. Worst case scenario, everyone would have died before that, even if it was an elite strike squad. These magic beasts had been that strong, fast, and dangerous. The problem was that this wasn't the first time I'd noticed this. Yeah, the dungeons have definitely changed. The day I killed the King of Giants, magic stones had vanished from dungeons all over the world. These minerals used to absorb much of the mana within dungeons, but with them gone, the magic beasts had it all to themselves. In an instant, dungeons became much more life-threatening than ever before. And these dangerous new beasts keep appearing. I frowned. The average strike squad setting foot inside a high-ranked dungeon wouldn't be able to avoid a fatality, and the number of gate-related incidents were on the rise as well. I had ordered Beru to guard my home out of worry, since the ant could handle most dungeons by himself. On the other hand, it wasn't entirely a bad thing from my perspective that gates were spawning more often, and that magic beasts were stronger now, since it allowed me to level up more easily. In this dungeon alone, I could sense that there remained many more magic beasts emitting tons of mana. A smile crossed my face. Now that I know what I'm dealing with, let's get this party started. I was done warming up. It was the beginning of their end. I said, "Come on out." My shadow soldiers emerged behind me from my shadow. I had already informed them how to handle these opponents, so they were prepared. With Beru guarding my family, Igris was now the commander of the whole army. At my nod, the knight signaled to the army to advance. Stomp, 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 stomp. Their marching footsteps echoed loudly inside the cavernous dungeon. One by one, the best hunters in the world arrived in the US for the International Guild Conference, the national-level hunters among them. However, Thomas Andre was concerned with only one person. Jinwoo Sung will arrive tomorrow. Thomas summoned Dongsoo to the president's office after verifying Jinwoo's schedule. Dongsoo cautiously asked as he studied Thomas's expression.
"You wanted to see me, sir?"
He'd been with the Scavenger Guild for a few years now, but he still found it difficult to talk to the guildmaster. Thomas was extremely powerful, had an unpredictable personality, and was very possessive. Despite being a fellow S-rank hunter, Dongsoo felt small in Thomas's presence. Thomas got straight to the point.
Mr. Hwang, do not lay a finger on Jinwoo Sung.
Dongsoo's eyes widened, unsure how Thomas knew. His eyes then shifted to Laura standing behind the guildmaster. She stared back at Dongsoo as if to indicate she had just been doing her job.
Tisk!
Dongsoo clicked his tongue. Thomas continued.
I know what happened between your older brother and Hunter Sung. I understand that there were suspicious circumstances and that you want answers.
Dongsoo's older brother, Dongsuk, had gone into a dungeon with Jinwoo a while back. All 8 of Dongsook's regular squad members had perished in that dungeon alongside him, while 2 of the survivors went on to form a guild together. No wonder he had questions for Jinwoo. Dongsoo's discontent showed on his face.
But
Thomas wagged a finger at him, and a corner of his lips curved up.
I don't remember saying you could speak, Mr. Hwang.
Just listen. It was a clear warning. Thomas was one of only a handful of hunters who could threaten S-rank hunters like that. Understanding the power dynamic between his guildmaster and himself, Dongsoo kept his mouth shut. Thomas emphasized one more time.
Do not do anything to Jinwoo. Heck, why don't you take a vacation at the guild villa for the duration of the conference? Would you do that for me?
Dongsoo held his tongue. Thomas prompted.
Mr. Hwang?
Dongsoo reluctantly nodded.
Sure.
Thomas said.
Good, you may leave now.
Dongsoo hastily left the president's office with a storm cloud over his head. Laura asked, seemingly unconvinced.
You think that will do, sir?
Thomas shook his head, disgruntled.
Not at all.
Thomas had seen the hostility on Dongsoo's face. He wasn't ready to let go of his brother's death. Thomas called.
Laura.
Laura answered.
Yes, sir.
Thomas ordered.
Keep a close eye on Mr. Hwang until Jinwoo leaves the U.S.
Laura asked.
Will he be okay with that?
Dongsoo might have behaved in front of Thomas, but he had quite a temper. Thomas, however, didn't care about that. This wasn't a matter where he could try to accommodate Dongsoo's preferences. He agonized over it for a bit as he scratched his chin, then shrugged. Thomas said,
Well, better frustrated than dead.
Germany's top hunter, Lennart Niermann, gasped at the sight as he exited the airport.
why are there so many reporters here?
As the guildmaster of Richter Guild, he attended the International Guild Conference yearly, but he had never seen this much press before. The vice guildmaster told him.
That popular Korean hunter is arriving in the US today.
Lennart answered.
Ah, got it.
Lennart understood immediately. Even though he was an S-rank hunter, it was difficult for him to resolve an S-rank dungeon break on his own, much less one with giants. No wonder the media was excited that a hunter who could was about to set foot on US soil for the first time. Lennart also found himself keen to learn more about Jinwoo. So he's coming, eh? At that moment, the passengers deplaning from Korea began pouring out of the airport. The vice guildmaster pointed at someone in the crowd.
Oh, there he is.
He too was an S-rank hunter. While not as strong as Lennart, his perception was good enough to be able to pick Jinwoo out of a large crowd. There was a twinkle in Lennart's eyes.
Shall we introduce ourselves?
The vice guildmaster asked.
What?
Lennart said.
It's not a bad idea to get acquainted with the mighty hunter.
The vice guildmaster agreed.
That's true.
One never knew when one might need the cooperation of another guild, so the purpose of the International Guild Conference was to gather the world's most powerful hunters in one place to allow them to network. Lennart was simply getting a head start on the festivities. He straightened his clothes and walked toward Jinwoo's group, but paused after a few steps. His face was growing as white as a sheet. The vice guildmaster glanced over his shoulder.
Aren't you coming, sir?
Lennart looked at his colleague, aghast.
Don't you see them?
The vice guildmaster asked.
Excuse me?
The vice guildmaster couldn't, but Lennart, one of the top hunters in the world, saw them clear as day. He mumbled to himself in disbelief.
I thought he summoned his minions from a different dimension, but he actually carries them around with him like this.
The vice guildmaster said.
Pardon?
What was Lennart talking about? Confused by the reaction, the vice guildmaster turned back in Jinwoo's direction, but he couldn't see hair nor hide of the minions. The vice guildmaster asked.
There are minions here?
Lennart answered.
Yes, tons of them.
Lennart concentrated on the army hiding in Jinwoo's shadow. 100, 200, 300. Could he even count them all? He swallowed hard and shuddered. You'd think he was here to declare war on the US with that many of them. Had Lennart been hosting this conference, he never would have allowed a hunter to bring such things into the country. There could only be two explanations. Either the Hunter Command Center didn't have a clear idea of just how powerful the Korean hunter was, or they were confident that his power wouldn't be used against them. As Jinwoo approached, Lennart felt an increasing pressure that he'd only ever experienced in the presence of national-level hunters such as Thomas Andre or Christopher Reed. Lennart froze under that pressure. Jinwoo eventually passed by him, but Lennart reflexively looked down. He didn't have the courage to make eye contact with Jinwoo, almost like his instincts refused to let him. Once Jinwoo's group was farther away, the confused Vice Guildmaster probed Lennart about his strange behavior.
Are you feeling okay, sir? You don't look so good.
Lennart dabbed at the sweat on his brow.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Perception was everything, and being able to measure another's ability was an important tool for hunters. But just this once, Lennart was envious of the Vice Guildmaster and the reporters for being oblivious to such terrifying power. Jinwoo saw me tilt my head curiously and asked,
Did you see someone you know, boss?
I answered, no. Some foreigner kept staring at me, so Jinwoo laughed it off.
You've been all over the news, so you've got more than a few fans. He probably just wanted your autograph, boss.
Though the foreigner seemed a bit too skilled a hunter to have been simply waiting for an autograph, I broke into a grin. Besides Jinho, there were two other members of my entourage. The association had sent along director Jinchul Woo and a female interpreter. One reporter shouted, "Oh, over there!" Another called, "It's Jinwoo Sung." The reporter spotted me. Kashak, 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 kashak! As the area lit up with camera flashes, Jinchul fished a pair of sunglasses out from his inner pocket, put them on, and carefully scanned the area. Jinho noted how tense the older man seemed.
By the way, why did you come with us, Director Wu?
As someone who held a directorial position at the Seoul branch of the Hunters Association of Korea, Director Wu was the head of an entire department. Jinho was thankful to the association for assigning them an interpreter, but he had no idea why someone as important as Jinchul had come along. Director Wu glanced at me and blushed.
I'm in charge of guarding Hunter Sung.
It took a lot of courage for him to admit that, but unfortunately, Jinho didn't hear him over the clamor of the airport.
Sorry, what did you say?
In charge, guarding.
Who are you guarding?
Jinchul was now as red as a tomato, so I put a hand on Jinho's shoulder to cut him off.
Boss?
I pointed toward a familiar face with my chin. Over there, I think they're here for us. Near the exit stood a young man in a slick suit and nicely coiffed blonde hair, Adam White. He made a beeline for me, accompanied by the same two bulky bodyguards. As soon as I made eye contact with them, they both ducked their heads, flustered as they recalled their vain attempt to tackle me on the plane, forgetting how much stronger I was. They genuinely looked like they were 2 seconds away from asking for an autograph. I acknowledged the two guards and shook Adam's hand. Adam brightly greeted me.
I've been waiting for you, Hunter Sung.
I asked Adam, "Didn't you tell me that you were in charge of Asia, Agent White?" Adam let out an awkward laugh and scratched the back of his head.
I was until recently when they put me in charge of assisting you, Hunter Sung.
They exchanged pleasantries, and then Adam led the group out of the airport.
I've arranged your transportation.
2 cars were idling. The 2 association employees piled into the second, while Jinho headed for the first, but Adam blocked his way. Jinho and I both paused. Upon seeing our confusion, Adam elaborated.
Everyone except Hunter Sung will be escorted to the hotel.
Adam then turned to me.
Would you please come with us, Hunter Sung?
Did this have anything to do with my father? My expression shuddered, and the temperature around us suddenly dropped. Adam quickly waved his hand.
I promise this is for your benefit, Hunter Sung. You're aware of what the Hunter Command Center thinks of you, right?
Adam had previously mentioned that the Hunter Command Center wanted to maintain friendly relations with me. They wanted to be helpful to me, and I didn't sense any hostility in Adam's words. Had there been any ill will, I would have picked up on it with my highly sharpened perception stat, just as I'd done with the King of Giants' offer to become an ally. I asked calmly, "What's this about that you can't discuss it here?" Adam smiled awkwardly and glanced at Jinho.
Some of the information is classified.
I'll see you back at the hotel, boss.
I said okay. I watched Jinho get in the second car before following Adam into the first one, which sped away as soon as we closed the door. The 2 cars split off in different directions. I had been patient enough. "So where are we going?" Adam answered.
The Hunter Command Center headquarters.
The Hunter Command Center? The International Guild Conference was to be held in a rented space near the hotel I would be staying at, so this wasn't conference-related business. I asked, "Can't you tell me what this is about now?" Adam pressed a button as if he had been waiting for this moment. A transparent partition rose between the front and back of the car, and a hologram of the English word soundproof blinked on the fiberglass. Adam seemed to wonder why I didn't care about the hologram.
This is the latest technology. Don't you find it impressive?
I answered, I see something similar to it every day, so... Adam seemed a little disappointed, but he quickly found his smile again.
Please excuse me for a second.
Knock, knock. He knocked on the partition to check the soundproofing before turning to me.
To be frank, we're under a lot of pressure right now.
The tragic death of Christopher Reed, one of 2 American national-level hunters, was much more painful of a loss than I could have imagined. Adam said,
Hunter Reed was one of the pillars of America's fighting forces, and the Hunter Command Center is desperate to fill this vacuum of power. His death is currently confidential, so things are quiet right now, but we will soon do whatever it takes to recruit a hunter who can replace him.
I asked, am I a candidate? Adam nodded. I appreciated his honesty, but I was growing impatient with being pestered with the same offer I had already rejected. I asked, aren't we done talking about this? Adam answered,
Yes, of course.
but he looked like he was just getting started. He pulled out his cell phone and showed me several pictures.
There's a new offer on the table.
The photos depicted the hunt for the first and only dragon magic beast to ever appear, Kamish the dragon. It had been the worst disaster in human history, and the raid people most wanted to forget. Only 5 participants of that particular raid had survived, and they were now known as national-level hunters. Adam stopped on an image of the world's best mage hunters extracting a rune stone from Kamish's remains. Adam explained,
As you well know, the value of a runestone is proportional to the strength of the magic beast it came from.
He swiped to bring up another picture. Kamish's priceless runestone, containing the greatest skill to ever exist, rested inside a glass case protected by several layers of security. Adam said,
We're looking for the new owner of this runestone.
Adam didn't have magic power, skills, or spells, but even he felt excited just looking at the stone. What feelings, then, would it elicit in someone like me? Adam peeked at me to gauge my reaction. As expected, the man who hadn't been impressed by the Hunter Command Center's newest technology now looked very anxious. Adam was sure he had done it, and he gave himself a mental pat on the back. However, I made an unexpected request. Can you go back to the previous pictures? Adam asked.
Pardon me?
I said, I want to see the ones before this. Confused, Adam obliged. I told Adam, hold on. I stopped Adam on one particular image and pointed at something to the side. I asked, where is this? I was pointing at a pillar that had caught my eye. Pillars had been erected around Kamish, which suggested that a building had been built to contain the corpse. Kamish had been killed 8 years ago. Magic beasts from high-ranked dungeons were worth their weight in gold, and its dead body would have ordinarily been cut up and used or sold off accordingly, so I never would have expected Kamish's corpse to be intact. Countless nations, companies, and research labs would have lined up to buy the remains. But based on the photograph, Kamish's body looked untouched, save wounds sustained from the fierce battle. My heart leaped at the possibility that Kamish's remains might be within reach. I asked, did the US preserve Kamish's corpse? Adam stammered.
Yes, that's right.
Adam didn't know what to make of my reaction. He had been hyping up the runestone every hunter in the world would kill to obtain, yet I was focused on the magic beast's cadaver. I pointed at the picture once again. Where is this? Let's go there. Adam asked.
Pardon me?
I said, I've been humoring the Hunter Command Center all this time. You can grant me this one request, can't you? Adam stalled. He was caught completely off guard. But the situation wasn't unsalvageable, right? Between Jinwoo and the Hunter Command Center, whoever needed the other more would be at a disadvantage, so the Hunter Command Center's plan was to catch Jinwoo's attention. They'd first tried using Mrs. Selner's ability, and when that failed, they'd tried dangling Kamish's runestone in front of him. But the spark of interest had come from a surprising source. This cloud might have a silver lining for Adam after all. The higher-ups said by any means necessary, right? The director and assistant director had gathered the agents of the Hunter Command Center and instructed them to get on Hunter Jinwoo Sung's good side no matter what it took. They were to increase the chances of him defecting to the US. If the Hunter Command Center had it, they were willing to give it to Jinwoo. Adam reminded himself of his mission and cleared his throat.
I don't actually know where Kamish's remains are located, as I'm strictly on a need-to-know basis.
My face fell as I nodded. That made sense. Adam seemed too young to be privy to any and all classified information. Adam confidently continued.
However, I'm sure I can get the clearance if it's for you, Hunter Sung. I'll have to report the situation to my superior first, so would you mind waiting?
I brightened at the news. The chances of shadow extraction failing increased the more time passed since death, and in Kamish's case, it had been 8 whole years. The odds were against me, and it could turn out to be a waste of my time and everyone else's to even try. But if there was a 1 in a million chance I could succeed, then I had to try. And if I pulled it off, I would command the shadow soldier born of the most powerful magic beast ever known to mankind. I felt giddy just imagining it. If I failed, the only loss would be a minute out of people's days. Considering the possible gain, it was worth the effort. Of course, I wasn't sure the US would allow it. I asked, "Aren't we heading to the Hunter Command Center now?" Adam answered.
That's right.
I said, "Then I'll just wait there." Adam muttered.
Oh.
He wrinkled his brow, unsure whether he should be happy about Jinwoo's sudden extreme interest. The director of the Hunter Command Center of the US made a similar face when he heard the news, as did Assistant Director Connor standing next to him. The director asked,
"So Hunter Sung is here? Now?"
Adam nodded. The director asked,
"What about the runestone? He didn't say anything about it."
He'd made the decision to bequeath Kamish's runestone to Jinwoo to persuade the Korean hunter to join America. After all, American hunters growing more powerful meant that America was in turn more powerful. However, Adam answered,
No, sir. He barely said anything about the runestone on the way here.
The director rubbed his chin.
That's not good.
Jinwoo reminded him of Thomas Andre. Both apex hunters were rather hard to predict. At this point, the director figured that when people reached the pinnacle as those two had, they simply thought differently than others. The director asked,
"So he really just wants to see the beast's remains?"
Adam nodded firmly.
Yes, sir.
Overall, he couldn't complain about how things had turned out. Adam's original mission had been to bring Jinwoo to the bargaining table, and since Jinwoo had willingly come to the Hunter Command Center, Adam's mission could be considered complete. It was now up to management to negotiate. The director couldn't come to an easy decision.
"I need to discuss this with Mr. Connor, if you would."
Adam answered.
Yes, sir.
Then he got up and left the director's office. The director was at a loss for what to do.
"Why do you think Hunter Sung wants to see Kamish's remains?"
The assistant director answered.
I'm not sure, but he's definitely not here to play tourist. It's likely the beast's remains mean more to him than the runestone.
Skills were invaluable. The greatest hunters were willing to spend a fortune on ones they needed, and for good reason. Skills meant power, and power meant survival. So how can seeing the beast cadaver be more beneficial to him than gaining a new skill? The two arrived at the same conclusion. Michael mused.
It probably has something to do with Hunter Sung's ability.
The director fell silent. The Hunter Command Center's ability to retrieve information on hunters was unparalleled, so naturally, they had gathered a substantial amount about Jinwoo. It was based on that intel that they deemed him worthy of offering Mrs. Sellner's ability and Kamish's runestone. The director asked,
"Isn't his ability restricted to magic beasts he personally defeats?"
After Jinwoo defeated ant magic beasts, ant shadow soldiers had appeared in his army. After he defeated giants, giant shadow soldiers had popped up. The more Jinwoo battled, the stronger he became, which was why the Hunter Command Center was desperate to make him a US hunter by any means necessary. But what if Jinwoo could turn a magic beast that had been killed by others a long time ago into a shadow soldier? The assistant director's eyes popped out of his head.
Oh my word, he wants to transform Kamish into one of his minions.
Michael's voice quivered. He couldn't believe Jinwoo would even consider making the worst disaster of human history into a minion. But it now made sense why Jinwoo wasn't concerned with the runestone. The director shook his head urgently.
"We cannot allow that to happen. No person should wield that much power."
The assistant director warned.
But if we reject him, it'll put a strain on our relationship.
That Jinwoo had come all the way to their headquarters to wait on an answer showed how eager he was. If one party refused the other's request due to a lack of trust, their relationship would break down. The director turned the matter over in his mind. If Jinwoo really could make Kamish into his minion and control it like they were speculating, no organization or country would be able to control him. Furthermore, his minions had the ability to quickly regenerate after being destroyed. The risk of Kamish attacking them once more, but with a similar unlimited regenerating ability, was too great for the sake of maintaining a good relationship with a hunter. The director wanted to know one thing before making his final decision.
We still have Thomas Andre, a national-level hunter, and almost 50 other S-rank hunters scouted from all over the world. Is Hunter Sung really worth pursuing further?
The assistant director hesitated to disclose unverified information, but ultimately decided to share the news.
Actually, there is a possibility that Hunter Sung may be a new national-level hunter.
The director abruptly leaped from his chair.
What?
The assistant director said.
We received a report from Agent White a week ago that Hunter Sung could use telekinesis.
The director was stunned. Apart from a healer, the national-level hunters had the ability to move objects at will, and though many powerful hunters had come before and after them throughout history, they were the only ones ever recorded as having that skill. As the only ones in the world to have made this connection, the Hunter Command Center considered telekinesis a prerequisite to being classified as a national-level hunter. If Jinwoo indeed had this ability, he might be God's gift to the US after losing the mighty Christopher Reed. God bless us, everyone. This country was truly blessed. The director's expression changed.
Do you think we can trust him?
The evaluation of an individual ability was objective, but the evaluation of whether someone was trustworthy was not. The assistant director spoke of the Jinwoo he'd observed up until this point.
What do you suppose would happen to anyone who aimed their guns at Thomas Andre or Zikang Lu?
The director answered.
It's terrifying to even think about it.
Both Thomas and Zhigong were merciless. If one was lucky, they might lose an arm and not their lives. The assistant director said.
Hunter Sung doesn't operate like that. You can still talk things out with him, even in urgent situations.
The director lowered his gaze and nodded. The assistant director continued.
And look at what he's done in Japan. No one else came forward to deal with the dungeon break there, but he took care of it without making any demands.
It was a sharp contrast to Yuri Orlov, who had asked for an insane 10 billion yen per day. The director didn't think on it much longer. He pressed his lips together and rose from his chair.
I'll take him myself. This may be a good opportunity to witness his abilities.
The assistant director brightened as he also stood.
By the way, sir, where exactly are Kamish's remains?
The director smiled.
Haven't you ever wondered why this building has 20 underground levels?
I was escorted onto the elevator by the director. The director said through Adam's interpretation.
I would have rather talked to you someplace quiet, but I thought you would prefer to make haste.
Adam smoothly interpreted for me. I nodded in agreement. The elevator carrying me, the director, the assistant director, and Adam quickly descended underground. I can't believe they built the headquarters of the Hunter Command Center on the spot where they killed Kamish. Only in America, I supposed. The director had explained that Kamish's remains were entombed beneath the Hunter Command Center to commemorate the sacrifice of the hunters who had stopped the worst disaster in human history. Ding! The elevator door opened on the 24th underground floor. Staff members waiting by the elevator greeted the 4 passengers. One staff member saluted. "Sir." Another staffer echoed, "Sir." The staffers appeared to be military personnel by the way they saluted the director. The director nodded at them as he led the group past. The director gestured.
Come this way.
I swallowed hard. A tightly secured door opened, and cold air stung my cheeks. Wait, this isn't just cold air. Although weak, there was mana in the wind. It was obvious whose it was. Ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump! My heart raced as my odds of shadow extraction seemed to increase. If Kamish's body still had magic power left even after having been dead for 8 years, how much power would his shadow soldier possess? I tried to calm my racing heart as I followed closely behind the director. The director stopped in front of an incredibly huge, brightly lit lair and said,
Here we are.
And there was the red dragon Kamish. It looked the same as it had since the national-level hunters stopped its final rampage. The dragon's imposing figure took my breath away. The director proudly explained.
All the electricity used in our building comes from Kamish's essence stone.
However, at this point, I couldn't hear a thing. My eyes were fixed on the remains. The director noticed my sparkling gaze and realized it was time.
Hunter Son, are you satisfied now?
I said, "Please step back." The staff began raising their concerns about my request. One staff member asked, "Mr. Brannon, what in the world is he trying to do?" Another staff member protested, "Kamish's remains are a national treasure." But the director raised his voice.
He has my permission.
Their objections immediately died down. The director and I had already discussed the process, and I had promised nothing would happen to Kamish's remains. Just like the assistant director, the director elected to trust me. The director told them,
Everyone, let's observe what happens.
They obediently retreated as per my instructions. I then stretched my hand toward Kamish and whispered, "Arise." The system answered at once. A notification arrived. Shadow extraction has failed. The system added that I had 2 attempts remaining. I calmly prepared for the next attempt. I whispered, "Arise." My desire to take control of the most powerful magic beast echoed through the room.
Arise!
The lights on the ceiling flickered, and a chilling wind blew from nowhere. It was impossible to tell where the dragon roar came from, but everyone slapped their hands over their ears. In this chaos, I was the only person who didn't lose my cool. I spotted Kamish's shadow spreading across the floor. Did I do it? My eyes widened as something slowly rose from the shadow. Surrounded by black smoke, it was unquestionably shaped like a dragon. One staffer cried. Another shouted, "What? What is that?" The staff shuddered and retreated farther. Although the director and assistant director knew about my ability, the sight of it in action stole their breath away.
Roar!
The dragon paused upon spotting me at its feet. The dragon spoke in the language of magic beasts.
Shadow Monarch, King of the Dead, is it you who has summoned me?